All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Gadcast. I am your host, Mason, aka God, and this is a podcast where we're going to be talking about all kinds of things nerdy, movies, TV, video games, all kinds of new things going on social media. Whatever is going to be happening, we're going to be talking about it on here. I am your host, again, Mason, aka God, hence the name Gadcast. It is not Gadcast. Just want to get that out for you guys so that way you understand how to say it. Anyways, hopefully I don't have to address that again, but who knows. Anyways, this is a very special episode since it's the first episode, and I thought to kick things off, we talk about a very indie film. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's, not very popular right now. It's not like the number one movie of all time with box office, It's a little game movie called Avengers Endgame. Now, obviously that was a joke, but I want to talk about this movie, guys, for the first episode because literally, just today, I saw this movie hit number one of all time with the box office sales. Oh my god. When I saw it past Titanic, I lost my mind. And when I saw that Avatar was somehow number one, I knew it was going to be passed up. I gave it a week and it did it within a day. So GG's to Marvel and the Russo brothers. You guys made a phenomenal film. And before we get into any specific details of this movie, spoiler warning, I will be talking about major spoilers in the film. So if you have not seen Avengers Endgame, go see it and then come back and watch this podcast. This is going to be a ton of fun. But yeah, let's get right into it. First thing I want to talk about with this film is the plot. I'm not going to get too in-depth with things in the sense of, going on about this for an hour alone. But I do want to talk about my favorite things with the film in the sense of plot and characters. What I love about this film was the shock factor. There were a lot of moments, especially literally from beginning to end, there was a lot of moments where I was like, holy crap, what is going on? What's going to happen? Biggest thing, though, for me, it definitely was the beginning of the film. Starting off with, pretty much around right after the snap and stuff like that, and everyone's gone. We find Tony and Nebula stuck in the Milano, I believe. They lost fuel. They're pretty much just dead, floating in space, running out of oxygen. And Tony leaves a goodbye message to Pepper. And one of the lines he says is actually a reference to, I believe, Iron Man 2. It's either Iron Man 2 or 1. I forgot which one, so correct me in the comments. But he says to her, it's you, it's always been you, meaning she's the one. But he said that before to her in, again, either first or second Iron Man when he made her the CEO. I believe that was the second one, but again, correct me in the comments. Thank you. But yeah, this movie sets you up with already on a low note. Also, of course, I did skip a thing. Clint Barton and his family in the beginning, showing them getting disappeared by the snap. Jesus, as soon as I saw him in the beginning, I went, it's a wrap, bro. That's a rip. And I felt so bad. I was like, damn, starting off like this in a depressing note, man. Freaking Infinity War already left me messed up, and then this is gonna do that. But yeah, that was very well set up again in the start, because again, I'm glad that they didn't just say it later. They actually show it, so that's really well done. Anyway, so after Tony's after he leaves that message, he's pretty much about to sleep. He's really about to just give up. He's about to, I think he's pretty much ready to die. But then you just see a light, and it's Captain Marvel. She saves him, brings him back, and the line he says to Cap when he lands, considering I'm a fan of this guy, messed me up so bad. He lands, and first thing he says to Cap is, "I lost the kid." Oh my god. The fact that first thing he says, he brings up Peter, just messed me up, because I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I'm a Spider-Man dork, and you will see that as you learn in these podcast episodes. But yeah, hearing that messed me up, and it was crazy. So then, cut ahead. The Avengers find out where Thanos is staying. They want to get the stones to bring everybody back. They find out Thanos used the stones again. They don't know what for. They just know he used them. So they track him down to his garden planet, and they pin him down. Thor cuts off his arm with the gauntlet, and they find the stones are gone because he used the stones to destroy the stones. That's why he used the stones, so he could get rid of them. And so Thor, out of anger and out of wanting to get revenge, slices off his head, and they ask, what the hell did you do? And he goes, I went for the head. Referencing the line from Infinity War where Thanos says you should have gone for the head and then snaps. God, that was... It's comedic, but it's also damn. But again, that moment, though, leaves you wondering, what the heck is this movie setting up? And then it cuts 5 years later, and that right there was the shock factor, along with the stones getting destroyed. The shock factor was the fact that we jumped 5 years, and that blew my mind, that's where they were going with this. And then, cut ahead, everyone's trying to still survive in this world where half the population's gone and all that stuff. And Tony's living a life on a farm with Pepper and their new daughter Morgan, and you got Cap trying to just talk to people, bring their spirits up in like kind of AA meetings, but they're not AA sessions. They're just sessions for people. And Joe Russo has a cameo as the first ever officially open gay character in the MCU, which props to him. That's cool. And I'm not gonna get again. It's just like it's interesting trying to show the humanity behind these characters, that this actually really affected them. And Tony's really the only one who's kind of tried to move on, because Thor, we find out, has been throwing himself in alcohol and beer and just he's literally become fat, which is insane the way they did it. But again, it shows that even a god like him can have grief, can have depressions, and all that like human emotions. So it does a really good job with his arc. I really like Thor's arc. I really like Cap's arc and Tony's arc in this movie. They really do focus on them a lot, as well as Black Widow and Clint. But the main three there, they do a really good job of focusing on their arcs. And so they find so Scott Lang, the way he comes back is, I guess it was set up because again, Doctor Strange could see into the future. A rat sets off the van that had the quantum realm teleporter thing off, and Scott comes back and he finds the Avengers after he reunites with his daughter, who he hasn't seen in years, and she's grown up. And he finds the Avengers and says, they say, you must have been terrible. It's been 5 years. You must have lived in hell. And he goes, that's the thing. It was 5 years for you guys, but it was only 5 hours for me. So that's where they learn the idea of time travel could be possible through the quantum realm and all that stuff. And so they get Tony on board. He finds out the way to do it. They find Banner, who originally tries to figure it out, but he doesn't do it successfully. So Tony jumps in, finds out it works. So they all go through different times, and this is where the movie actually gets very good at the start. Like, this movie was already great to start, and it gets even better as it goes. I believe this is like the second act at this point. I'd say there's like 3 acts in this film. Like, I don't care. Like, you can separate it how you want, but I say like you got the beginning, middle, end. And the middle is where it really is starting to pick up to like the best part of the film leading to the end. So the Avengers have to go back to 3 different films. They have to go back to the first Avengers film, Thor the Dark World, and Guardians of the Galaxy 1. They go back to the first Avengers to get the Mind Stone, Space Stone, and the Time Stone. And there we actually find out in the first Avengers the Sorcerers were actually helping just in their own little area. They were helping fight the battle in New York just in their own little confined area to protect the sanctum that they were watching that was in Manhattan. And I think that's really cool that they show they were there, they just had to keep it low key. So that's really cool. And then you get to Banner finds the Ancient One, which is really cool to see her again. I don't remember the actress's name, but she did a phenomenal job. It was really cool seeing her again. She has the Time Stone on her, and she talks to Banner, and he's talking to her, and he mentions Stephen Strange. She says, Stephen Strange is meant to be the best of us all, and he will do no wrong or whatever. And he goes, really, then why did he give up the Time Stone to Thanos? She goes, wait, what? And he said, yeah, he gave up the stone. And then she realizes he actually had a plan, so she gives up the stone. They got that stone. Cap, when they have Loki's scepter, which has the Mind Stone, Cap finds Rumlow, and I forgot the other guy's name, but they were S.H.I.E.L.D. agents that were actually Hydra. So he gets in the elevator with them, and it's almost looking like it's going to reenact that scene from Winter Soldier, where he goes, before we get started, does anyone want to get out? And start that whole fight. But he stops it, and he says the one thing that blew my mind. He says, hey, it's alright, and he leans over and goes, Hail Hydra. I lost it, bro. I lost my mind when he said that, because if those of you that do not know, that is a reference to, I don't know which comic storyline it is. It might be the main one. It might be another one. But in one of the comic storylines, we actually find out Captain America is actually a secret agent for Hydra the whole time. Like, he was working for Hydra the entire time, and it's crazy. And so that was a really good reference. So he gets the scepter, but he runs into his past self. And his past self looks at him and goes, I can do this all day. He's like, yeah, I know. And so they fight. And he distracts him by mentioning Bucky, which has been happening before. And actually before that, I missed a line. Tony's watching them take Loki away. And he says, Cap, I gotta tell you, that suit did nothing for your ass. And I believe Lang replies, don't listen to him, Cap. That's America's ass. And so after Cap beats up his past self and knocks him out, he looks at himself and he goes, you're right, Lang. That is America's ass. The fact that you go from Age of Ultron Cap, who says language, to then saying that line is amazing. Again, it's great writing. It's great writing and connecting. There's so many Easter eggs that I can't even cover in this podcast because I got other stuff I want to talk about, but I'm trying to get through this. And so after he gets the scepter, you got Tony trying to get the Space Stone, but that fails because he's about to get away, but past Hulk busts through a wall, knocking Tony away and dropping the Space Stone, but then Loki picks up the Space Stone and teleports away. So thus creating, I believe, a new timeline where Loki escapes. So he might be alive in that timeline instead of dead in the main one, but who knows? We still have no idea. So then they have to, so Tony says to Cap, hey, listen, I know there's another time where the Space Stone's going to be and we can get more Pym particles because that's what they use to travel back in time through the quantum realm, etc. So they go back to, I don't remember what year, but they go back to the training camp where Cap was trained, and that's where Hank Pym is, creating more Pym particles, and where the Space Stone is being held for a while. So Tony goes and finds the Space Stone in the cube, but he runs into somebody. He runs into his father, who is telling, in this case, Tony's alter ego, I believe, was Howard Potts. Howard because, his father's name, and then Potts, his wife. And so they have a conversation, and Tony gets a little more understanding from his father, because now that he is a father, he understands what it's like to be scared having a kid and all that stuff. And he actually has a really good bonding moment with his father, because his dad says to him, like, me and my wife are about to have a kid, it's gonna be crazy, I just, and then it's interesting, and it gets more understanding for Tony, because he didn't really like his father growing up, because his father wasn't really there. But his father knows he made mistakes, and he kind of learns that as time goes on. So it's really cool to see that development more of Tony's character, even though he's been a character for 10 years now, which is in the MCU. And that's crazy that even after all this time, you can still develop them further, which again is phenomenal writing. And so then you go on to Cap, who's getting Pym particles, who distracts Hank Pym, which is really cool because you see a shot of the old school Ant-Man helmet, the one that's like the round one up top with the thing going around the face. It's really cool. And he gets distracted. Cap takes some Pym particles and leaves, and him and Tony go back, and yeah, so that's the 3 stones that they get. Those guys get. Then you have Black Widow and Hawkeye going to Boromir to get the Soul Stone. Now, as soon as I found out they were going to get the Soul Stone, I was like, damn, who's going to be the one to die? Because if you guys remember in Infinity War, you have to make a sacrifice of something you love in order. It's a soul for a soul. You sacrifice a soul, you get the Soul Stone. So the 2 of them are practically having like a really dope fight. Not really fight, but kind of a fight to see who's going to be the one to do it. And Clint at first gets the upper hand. He jumps off, but then Black Widow jumps after, uses his grapple to hook on, and he takes her hand, but she's like, it's okay. So I don't remember the line, but she's like pretty much telling him it's okay. So inevitably, at the end, Black Widow's the one to sacrifice herself, and it's a very sad moment because the 2 of them, the relationship they have as very, very close friends it's crazy. It's insane. And so seeing her go was sad. And now it makes more sense though that she is getting her own film, but I'm not going to be talking about that today. But yeah, so that makes a little bit more sense. So then Bucky gets not Bucky. Barton gets the Soul Stone. He's distraught about what happened. He's pissed. He's upset. He's messed up. But anyways, he goes back to present day. Then you have Thor and Rocket. Thor and Rocket go to Thor Ragnarok. I keep saying Ragnarok because I keep forgetting that Dark World exists because that movie was meh. Again, not getting into that. But anyways, they go to Dark World to get the Ether, which is, for those of you that don't know, is the Reality Stone. They go back to get that from Natalie Portman's character, Jane Foster, who at the time it was like in her body, so they have to inject it out of her. And so Rocket goes to do that, and Thor gets distracted because his mother's there. And for those of you that don't know, so again, spoilers, his mother dies in Dark World. And it's insane because his mother finds him and knows he's from a different time and all that, and they still talk, and it's crazy. And it's really nice to hear dialogue from her because this is the most lines she's had in all of her films. I don't remember the exact number, but she had I think double or triple the lines in Endgame than she did throughout any of the other films she was in the MCU, which is insane because I love her character. And so anyways, Thor, before he leaves, you got Rocket running back to him with the ether and an injection going, he said the guards are chasing him saying, "Halt, rabbit," or something, which is funny. So I guess all raccoons look like rabbits in Asgard, which is hilarious. Because that's what Thor called him when he saw him on the Guardian ship. So that's cool. So Rocket comes back, he's like, hey, we gotta go, and Thor's like, wait, and he holds out his hand, and he finds out he's still worthy of Mjolnir, which is really cool because, again, I like that message where it's like, you know, even a god who's gone through all this stuff and is acting this way, he's still worthy to wield the hammer, which is really cool. And the thing that actually was interesting to me, he took it back with him. I'll get back into that in a minute, because that's going to feature a very key moment. But I'll get back into that. So then, the last one, the Power Stone, is retrieved by Nebula and War Machine. They go back to when Quill, a.k.a. Star-Lord, is dancing and singing Red Bones, Come and Get Your Love, in that little temple area. But they do a really funny shot where it shows him just dancing and singing without the music in the background. And it's absolutely hilarious. And so War Machine knocks him out. They go and get the stone, but right before they leave, War Machine goes back, but Nebula, as they're about to go back, has a mess up with the transmission because she's like somehow connected to her past self, because since they're both kind of cyborgs or robot, I don't know what the term is. But that, in a way, has Thanos find out that there is another version of her here, which is really bad. Thanos from 2014, I believe. So that's bad. And so this Thanos finds a way to manipulate it where they kidnap present-day Nebula and send past Nebula, who's evil, to infiltrate them and bring Thanos to the present day, because he knows that they have the stones, because he saw through... you could have replays of Nebula's, what she's seen. So he sees his future, how he dies and how he gets the stones, but he finds out, like, you know, his plan at the end really isn't what... It doesn't work out. Like, I mean, it works. He kills half the population, but it doesn't work in the sense of what he wanted from it. So he goes to present day with the evil Nebula after she transmissions him through. But before this, everyone gets back, sees that Natasha's dead, and Thor wants to bring her back with the gauntlet, but even Clint's like, it's not gonna work, dude. I'm sorry, it's not. And so they have to work through it. Tony makes a really cool Iron Man style gauntlet with the stones, and what's interesting about it, fun fact, the Thanos in Infinity War used the gauntlet on his left hand. Tony makes this new gauntlet on his right. Now, I believe this is a reference to, I don't remember what time it is in history, but there was a time in history where if you were left-handed, you were considered, like, unpure or whatever the term is, and people would train left-handed people to write with their right hands because that was considered the right thing to do. So in a way, this is like a reference to that, where Tony is making things right, and, you know, he put the gauntlet on the right. So that's cool. And so Thor wants to be the one to use it to bring everybody back because he feels the grief. He's like, I'm the strongest Avenger, let me do it. And Banner's like, no, I gotta be the one to do it, because the stones send off a wave of gamma radiation, which is what created him as the Hulk, so he believes he can take it, and he can. He puts on the gauntlet, he's feeling extreme pain throughout his body, but he gets the snap off. And he's kind of like, you know, he's in pain from it. But actually right before that, there's a moment where they're like saying, take it off, but then Cap's like, wait, can you take it? And that's kind of a reference to when Cap was being injected with the super soldier serum in the first Captain America movie, and he says, no, I can do this, let me do it. And so it's kind of a reference to that, which is really cool. And so Banner does the snap, and right after that, Clint's getting a call on his phone from his wife, so we know it worked. But literally, right before they can even celebrate, Thanos' ship from 2014 strikes the Avengers headquarters, blowing it up, and you have War Machine, Rocket, and Hulk underneath a bunch of freaking rubble. You got Ant-Man separated from everybody. You got Hawkeye with the gauntlet being chased by some Chitauri. I believe it was the Chitauri. I might be wrong. And then you have Cap, Thor, and Iron Man on the outside. I believe that's everybody. And then Nebula's still with Thanos kidnapped, and the evil Nebula's on ground floor. So Thanos comes down. He says, go retrieve the gauntlet. I'm going to wait. So he just sits there. And Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America, this is when things start to really pick up. Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man see him, and he goes, you know, I believe one of them's like, you know it's a trap, right? And Thor's like, I don't care. And he holds out one hand, grabs Stormbreaker, holds out the other, gets Mjolnir. It's the dopest combo ever of freaking weapons. And I thought that was cool. But we're going to get to something cooler literally like a little bit in this fight. So the three of them go to fight Thanos. He gets up. They start fighting, you know, all that stuff. And they all are starting to get their asses kicked. And Thanos is about to press down. Thanos is about to press down Stormbreaker into Thor's chest, kind of like the reverse of what happened at the end of Infinity War. But right before he can, you see Mjolnir lift. And someone throws Mjolnir, hits Thanos, and pulls it back. And just as it comes back, you see Cap grab onto it, and it's so sick because this was probably one of my favorite moments of the entire film, seeing Cap wield Mjolnir, and he like knows how to use it. He like flips it around, hits Thanos in the face, he throws his shield and then throws the hammer at his shield, creating a sonic wave. It's the most dope fight ever. But then Cap kind of loses the upper hand, and his shield actually gets broken and like sliced in half almost by Thanos' weapon, which is crazy. But again, it's another reference to Age of Ultron when Tony was shown the vision of all of his friends dying and the Chitauri there, which is a really good reference because it shows after everyone gets their beat down, Cap's the only one still standing. In a way, it's like a reference to that. So Cap gets up and he walks forward, and this is probably one of the most beautiful shots I've ever seen in all of cinema. It shows him and an entire army, like all of Thanos' army, against one man. But right before he's about to do anything, he hears a voice in his comm saying, "Hey Cap, you there? It's Sam." And he says this, he goes, "On your left." And that, again, that's a reference to Winter Soldier in the beginning. Cap was saying "on your left" to Falcon. It's a reverse. It's great. And then he looks to his left and a portal opens, like a sling ring portal. And out walks Panther and Okoye and Shuri. And I'm like already hyped, and I'm just waiting for my boy Spidey to show back up. Then another portal opens, another Wakanda portal opens with Groot and Bucky walking out, which is awesome. And then you got another one to Titan where you see the Guardians and you see my dude Spider-Man swinging in. And then you have all of the freaking wizards and Wong and Doctor Strange. You got Valkyrie and her Pegasus coming in, which is awesome. You got everybody pretty much, except for the people who were killed like physically before the snap, which really sucks. But you know, oh yeah, also I forgot to mention, Gamora, present day Gamora, betrays Thanos like she had always planned and joins with the good guys. Anyways, and Nebula kills her past self, which is interesting. So I guess that creates another time change. But again, I'm not gonna get into that. Anyway, so everybody's lined up, and Cap says the one line I've been waiting for him to say ever since Age of Ultron. He says, "Avengers, assemble," and they all charge in and start fighting. And at this point now, in the middle of the fight, you get to see moments of everybody who was killed at one point. Peter's having some awesome moments. Freaking Panther's having awesome moments. Drax is, Star-Lord, everybody's getting a moment for themselves here, and it's awesome. And so Thanos sees the gauntlet, tells someone to go after it. Clint takes the gauntlet, starts running with it, and Panther's like, "Clint, give it to me." And in a way, they're like playing football with it. And eventually it gets its way to Spider-Man, and he's trying to swing around with it and get away. And actually, I missed a part. Before that, when they're just fighting normally, Tony's about to get hit, and Peter pulls him away. And Peter comes up to him and is like, "Hey, Mr. Stark, it was crazy. Last thing I remember, I was feeling all dusty, and then I must have passed out because then when I woke up, Doctor Strange was like, 'It's been 5 years. They need our help.'" And I'm like, "It's been 5 years." And Tony just hugs him. And he's like, "Oh, this is nice." And in a way, I think that's a reference to in Homecoming, when Tony went to reach for the door, Peter thought it was a hug, and it wasn't. So again, it's also really nice to see those two together, because Tony, you see throughout the film, is really missing him and stuff, and wishes that never happened because he blames himself. But anyways, now that the kid's back, it's great. And Tony actually runs into Strange. I'll continue what I was saying in a second. But Tony actually sees Strange. He goes, "Hey, you said out of 14 million, we win 1. Is this it?" And he goes, "If I tell you, it won't happen." And so he's like, "You better be right." And so anyways, the fight goes back on. The gauntlet's being passed to one another. It gets to Peter. And like, as they're passing it, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, Scarlet Witch. She comes back too, because she's a very key moment here. Thanos is about to go take it from Spidey, but she jumps in front of him, and she's like, "You took everything from me." And he's like, "I don't even know who you are." And she goes, "You will," and just starts to mess him up. But then he calls down an attack of his fleet. Like, he calls down an attack to shoot from his ship, even on his own fleet, just so he doesn't die. He's literally willing to sacrifice his entire fleet. And so, at this point, like, everyone's kind of messed up. And Peter's still holding the gauntlet, but he's like kind of curled up, trying not to get hit by the laser shots. But literally they stop and they start shooting off in the distance. And then Captain Marvel comes and destroys the ship all by herself. And she lands, and Peter's just sitting there in the fetal position with the gauntlet. He's like, "Hey, I'm Peter Parker." She's like, "Hey, Peter Parker, you got something for me?" And he gets up, and there's just the army behind her. He's like, "I don't know how you're going to get through all of that." and so then this is a cool moment. All of the females of everything are... Oh! I can't believe I forgot to mention Pepper. She also has an Iron Man suit in this. I think her name is Rescue. I might be wrong. Correct me in the comments. But she has her Iron Man suit, which is awesome looking, and she's freaking dope in this fight. And so all the females of like the MCU pretty much come together. I think it's a reference to I'm so mad I don't remember. I know it has an A in it. Again, let me know in the comments section. I forgot what it's called, but it's super cool. It's like a reference to like an all-female like Avengers group in the comics, and it's super dope. And so they all have their moment, and it comes down to them trying to send the stones back to their time, but the van with the quantum realm machine gets destroyed. So then it comes down to everyone stopping Thanos because he gets the gauntlet and he's trying to snap, but Captain Marvel stops him for a bit, and Tony looks over at Strange. And Strange just goes, he says 1. And so Tony then just looks and he says, he goes and he struggles with the gauntlet for a minute. And Thanos knocks him away. He goes, I am inevitable. And he tries to snap, but it doesn't work. And when he looks, all the stones are gone. And then you look at Tony, the stones form in his nanotech suit. And he goes, and I am Iron Man. And he snaps. And I'm like, yo. But then I didn't think about it. The stones have the effect that could kill somebody, and he's only human. So I went, oh shit. And so after he snaps, it's a reverse of Infinity War. All of Thanos' army starts to fade. You kind of see Ebony Maw have like a Spider-Man I don't feel so good moment, struggling his way to Thanos, and he disappears. And Thanos just takes a knee. He just takes a knee, and he disappears. But then we see Tony struggling, and his whole right side of his face is just messed up. The whole right side of his body is just messed up. And we know at this point he's not going to make it. And so he's like struggling. War Machine's there. He like places his hand on top of Tony's head. He kind of like caresses his head. Peter comes over in tears. He's like, hey, Mr. Stark, like, we won. It's me, Peter. We won. Tony. And he actually calls him Tony for like the first time. And it's heartbreaking, man. It's heartbreaking. And Pepper says to Tony, says, hey, look at me. She goes, it's okay. We're going to be okay. You can rest now. And that's a callback to the beginning of the film where he says he knows the way to time travel, but he's not sure if he should do it. I can just go upstairs and go to sleep. And she goes, but would you be able to rest? But it's also reference to ever since the first Avengers, he has not been able to sleep. He really hasn't. He hasn't been the same. So this is his time. He can rest now. And this is, I lost it. I'm like crying my eyes out at this point. It's insane. And so after that, you know, everyone has a mourning moment, and it's absolutely sad. There's a funeral for Tony, and they send off a little bouquet of flowers down the river, and in the center is the very first arc reactor he ever created, and it's the one that says proof that Tony Stark has a heart. And that broke me. Like, that broke me even more. And it was a little giggly moment because, you know, that was a funny moment in the first Iron Man, but then it's just, you know the reason, and you go back to crying. And then you have everybody there, and even there's the kid from Iron Man 3. Again, I don't remember his name. I had it and I lost it, but yeah, you have the kid from Iron Man 3 is even there, and Nick Fury's there. Everyone's there, and it shows everyone going back to their normal lives. You got Peter going back to school, seeing Ned, which I'll get into that in a minute. Actually, it'll be in the next topic. You go see Peter going back to Ned. You see just everybody going back to live their normal lives. And so it then shows Cap is about to go back in time to return the stones where they were, because if you don't, then there's going to be issues. And so he says to Bucky before he leaves, he goes, don't do anything stupid till I get back. And Bucky replies, how can I? You're taking all this stupid with you. That is a reference to the very first Captain America when Bucky's going off to war, and he says the same thing to Cap, but it's a reversal. Again, they do a lot of references and reverse lines with one another. It's perfect. It's amazing. And so when Cap goes back, they try and bring him back. It doesn't work. And then Bucky looks over to the shore. He sees an old man sitting there, and he goes, hey, Sam, look. Sam goes over. He goes, Cap? And Cap's an old man. We find out he went back in time. Actually, we find out he went to a different timeline and lived out his life with Peggy Carter. The one he lived the life he deserved and the life he wanted. And that right there was a beautiful moment, and Cap actually looks at Sam and he goes, oh, by the way, I got this. And he gets his shield, and it's completely fixed. It's a brand new shield. And he goes, why don't you try it on? And Sam puts it on. He's like, how does it feel? He's like, it doesn't feel right. But he's like, I don't want to live in a world without Captain America. And it's a good line. And he said, and pretty much what that's saying is, no more Steve Rogers. He's hung up the thing. I'll get actually before I get into that. Another thing he says, you want to tell me about her? And Steve goes, no, I don't think I will. He wants to keep his life with Peggy a secret, and it's beautiful, and it shows. I'll get to that in a second. So then, pretty much that's hinting that Sam's taking on the role of Captain America, which is a reference to the comics. Excuse me. Falcon does take up the mantle of Captain America, which is freaking awesome, and it's so well done. It's such good stuff, and I'm gonna give my overall opinions at the end of this. And so it then shows Cap. The last scene of the movie is Cap slow dancing with Peggy, and then they kiss. And the song playing that they're slow dancing to is in Winter Soldier, the scene where Cap goes to his apartment and Nick Fury's there. It's the song that's playing on his my God, what's it called? Wow, record player, on his record player, and it's freaking beautiful, man. Or his record player, same diff. But yeah, it's beautiful. And overall, guys, what I have to say about this movie, if you haven't seen this movie yet and you decided to sit through all of this, go see the film. It may be 3 hours long, but I'm not going to lie to you, it does not feel like 3 hours. It's a phenomenal... I said this before, I don't know if I said this at the beginning, but I said this to all of my friends. I'm going to say the same thing to you guys. I thought this movie was perfect. I'm so satisfied with the way they ended things. I'm so happy with what they did. I can't get over it. It's a phenomenal film. I could watch it multiple times over and be just as happy with it. And it's definitely my number one of all time of Marvel movies. And I'm actually going to get to that in a minute. But yeah, overall, I loved Endgame. It was a perfect film in my opinion. Go see it if you have not. It's a phenomenal film. It's an emotional roller coaster of happy, sad, happy. It's amazing. So that's that. And believe it or not, we actually have more topics today. We have 2 more topics in the sense that are going to go into detail. So, second topic I want to get into today is the Spider-Man Far From Home trailer. The reason I started with Endgame is I wanted to transition to this because this is connected to Endgame. Spider-Man Far From Home just dropped a second trailer yesterday, and it shows us a little bit of how Peter's feeling after Tony's death. And it's absolutely... Tom Holland's an amazing actor, and showing, how connected he is, it's phenomenal. And this trailer is really showing how Peter's going to be on his own. Kind of. He has Happy there, which is really nice. But, literally, the first line he's in the trailer is, everywhere I go, I see his face. I just miss him so much. Bro. The connection between them, literally, Peter's, lost another father figure. First his actual father, then Uncle Ben, and now Tony. It's insane. And so... In this movie, we're going to see Peter take another step. And it's phenomenal because we're seeing him work with Nick Fury, which is something I've wanted to see for a while. And it opens up the multiverse. Literally, in a sense, this is why I love Marvel writing. They literally, within just a couple lines from the way I saw it in the trailer, they explain the multiverse in just a couple lines. What happens is, Nick Fury takes Peter and he's like, hey, this is Mr. Beck. He shakes hands with Quentin Beck, a.k.a. Mysterio, and he goes, he's from Earth, just not ours. And... Peter's like, wait, you're saying there's a multiverse? That right there is an opening for so many things, like the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, because now Disney owns the rights to them, and we're going to get these movies, which is going to be amazing. I cannot wait. And so, anyways, throughout this trailer, you're seeing that Peter's got a lot of decisions to make in the sense of growing up, in the sense of learning and stepping up. And one of the lines he says, the world needs the next Iron Man. And I'm thinking that's who he's going to be. Not literally Iron Man, but he's going to take the mantle. He's going to take the step of being the next big superhero, which is great for me because I'm a huge Spider-Man dork. I really am. But it's also trying to take over Tony's spot. And not really take over, but, just honor him, which is awesome. I love what they're going to do with it. I can't wait to see. And the way they're actually making it seem to play out in the trailers is Mysterio is going to be a good guy. I like that because I'm 95% sure by the end of it he's going to betray everybody, which is pretty cool if they're setting up that Peter and him are going to be friends, because then it's going to make that traitorous moment heartbreaking for Peter, and it's another one of those moments where they had a connection and he's like, I trusted you and all that stuff. It's going to have a more deeper meaning in the fight. So if they fight. So that's going to be, I can't wait for this movie. Mostly because it takes place after Endgame, and I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, and I can already tell this movie is going to be better than Homecoming. Now, don't get me wrong, I liked Homecoming. I thought it was great. Now, it's like my number 3 or 4 in all Spider-Man films, but this movie has potential to be the best Spider-Man film. 100% has potential, and I cannot wait. So that's overall how I feel about the Spider-Man Far From Home trailer. I thought it was phenomenal. I can't wait to see what they're going to do with MJ's character and see how that's going, and, see where Peter's going to go by the end of it. And the relationship between him and Quentin Beck. I can't wait. And actually, another thing I'm going to get into, guys, I'm going to talk about my top 10 Marvel films of all time. I have talked about this. I'm going to listen for you guys, and I'll tell little reasons why. But I already talked about Endgame. Endgame is my number 1. And I know I'm just jumping topics quick, but it's like I do want to talk about my top 10 because Endgame is really the end of like the main stuff. And I wanted to do this because like Endgame is pretty much it in the sense of like the main Avengers. So I figured I'd make my top 10 for those movies right now. And so my number 1, I'm going to start from number 1 and go up because I already told. Actually, you guys already know my number 1. It's Endgame. I thought the movie was perfect. I already explained it. If you didn't see the first 30 minutes of the episode, go watch it. Number 2, this one was tough, but after watching a lot of these films again that were in my top 10, I got to go with Winter Soldier. Captain America Winter Soldier is one of the best MCU films of all time. It does such a good job with the connection between Bucky and Cap. Cap's one of my favorite characters of all time, and how he acts as a person, introducing Falcon into the story. Just, it has such good writing and such good character that I can't get over how good the movie is. Again, that's one of those movies I could watch over and over and just enjoy it the same every time. My number 3 is 100% Infinity War. Infinity War was an amazing setup to Endgame. It's not even like a setup. It was a great film on its own. It wasn't afraid to have a dark ending. It wasn't afraid to kill off characters. It wasn't afraid to take a risk. And for all those reviews that say the movie wasn't that good because of that reason, or people were complaining, like, come on. You gotta have those moments where you gotta take a dark turn, because the MCU never really killed off many characters, and the fact that this movie said screw you to all of you who think we weren't going to, I was so confident Spider-Man was gonna make it out of the film. I was wrong. Now obviously I knew he was gonna come back because I knew about Far From Home, but it's still insane that they did that turn, and it's amazing and well done, and the writing, and just Josh Brolin as Thanos is definitely the best villain of them all. He's amazing, and I love what they did. My number 4 is, if I remember correctly, this was tough. I had to think about it. But my number 4 is Civil War. Civil War, again, these are the Russo brother films are 100% my top 5. I'm telling you that right now. All the Russo brother films are in my top 5. And this is the last one that they did. This movie was phenomenal. They did such a good job. Again, the dialogue alone with throwing in Spider-Man and Black Panther into this film for the first time ever. The dialogue that they have without having to get into so much detail about their histories. Because number 1, we've seen Spider-Man's origin so much. But within just a little bit of dialogue between him and Tony, you know what's going on. You know how he's been, how long he's had his powers, what's been going on with Uncle Ben and all that stuff. It's amazing writing. And then, of course, you have T'Challa, Black Panther, bringing him in the way that they did by showing his father's death. And, it's insane the way they do the writing. And he's like, I must take up the mantle. I will kill him. I will kill Bucky myself. So you know who he is. You know he's Panther. He's going to do it. And Panther was great in the film. Spider-Man was amazing in the film. And just seeing these friends, these group of people that we've seen grow together in the 10 years of the movies, fighting each other. It's hard. It's a little heartbreaking, but it's beautifully written and beautifully done. And again, finding out that actually Bucky was the one to kill Tony's parents, it's insane knowing that that's what it is, and Steve knew that. So it's again very interesting to see these characters the way that they are done in this film, because it's different and it's new and it's phenomenal and it's beautifully written, because the Russo brothers are amazing and they know how to get a good writing team together. So that's my number 4. My number 5 has to be the first Iron Man, the first ever MCU film. Robert Downey Jr., phenomenal at what he did. People were skeptical about him when he was first announced to play Tony Stark. I honestly didn't care that much about Iron Man until I saw this movie. After that, I was hyped. And then knowing that this universe was going to pick up, it's insane. And I loved it. honestly, I can't get into it too much. I mean, I can, but it's like I can't explain it in words how good that film is. Like, again, just like the other films, it's very well written. It has comedy. Like, that's the one thing I give all these films. Even if they're very serious, they still find a way to include comedy. And it's amazing. It's phenomenal. And so, yeah, Iron Man 1 is my number 5. My number 6 is Captain America: The First Avenger. Captain America: The First Avenger is another phenomenal film. And again, I didn't care about Captain America before this. And I knew Chris Evans as the Human Torch before I knew him as Captain America because, duh. And so I was very skeptical going into this because I didn't care. I was just like, I'm only a Spider-Man fan at the time. Then these movies came out and I started reading more comics and I love all these characters. It's phenomenal. And Captain America, seeing him again as the guy who is willing to do anything he can to help the ones in need. It's phenomenal seeing a character like that. Like in the scene where they have a dummy grenade thrown in, he jumps on the grenade. He literally is willing to give up his life for his fellow soldiers. He's an amazing character, and Chris Evans plays him perfectly. I don't think anyone could do it better. My number 7 is Thor 1. The first Thor. The first Thor was... It was different for me because, again, I knew nothing about these characters. I'm going to repeat myself a lot because it's very true. I didn't know like anything about these characters. I was sitting here and I'm like, watching this film, seeing a god become human throughout most of this film, and then learning more about who he is and really understanding the true meaning of what it means to be worthy. It's really well written. And then, Natalie Portman as Jane Foster, she was great in the movie. And he's a Dr. Selvig, freaking what's his name? Wow, I know his kid's name because he played Pennywise in It. Why is it the names are blanking on me now when I'm like... Whatever. Phenomenal actor. That whole bloodline of people are phenomenal actors. And it's insane, for these origin films, how really good they are. And again, at the end, when Thor learns how to be, when he's worthy again, he takes down the I believe it was the Destroyer, I think it's called. I might be wrong. But yeah, it's phenomenally written, and it's really a good story for Thor, that they started off with him getting his power stripped from him and he becomes human. So again, it's very well done, seeing like a god try to adapt to human life, and he understands it. But he's also willing to give his life for the one he loves. So that's my number 7. My number 8 is the first Avengers. The very first Avengers film. The first Avengers, again, just seeing all these characters brought together for the first time was one of the best things in cinema history. Because the MCU was the first ever movie series, was a movie universe to do this. To bring characters like this and connect their movies. It was phenomenal. It was amazing to see all these characters together for the first time. It was hilarious, it was funny, it was cool, filled with action, and it was intense. Seeing, Tony carry that nuke up into space and almost die, I actually thought he was going to. I'm so glad they didn't, because setting up Endgame like that was great. And it's so good. It's very, very well written. And that is my number 8, I believe. My number 9 is the very first Guardians of the Galaxy. A lot of these are the number 1 films of each because you can't beat the originals a lot of the time. You really can't. The very first Guardians of the Galaxy, I'd never heard of these characters in my entire life. Afterwards, I looked up a lot about them. I read a little bit more about them, and I'm so happy I did. I love their stories. I love the comedy behind them. I love everything that goes with their characters. It's so well done, and it's hilarious. It's fun. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. The Guardians of the Galaxy really blew my mind because, again, I'd never heard of them. And after seeing the trailers, I was still a little bit skeptical, but I thought it was going to be hilarious. So I was like, yeah, I want to go see this movie. It's a Marvel film. It's going to be hilarious. It's something different from the Avengers. Let's go see it. And that's when they started to culminate Thanos a little bit more and the Infinity Stones. And so really seeing the connection and the universe coming into one at that point was really cool. And seeing all of that slowly make its way. So I thought that was great, and that's really why I liked that film, because it had the comedy, it had the characters, it was amazing. And then Yondu as well. I want to bring up him, freaking Michael Rooker, one of the best people ever. Like, one of the best characters in Guardians. I'm sad that they killed him off in the second one, but he was one of my favorite characters in all of that. So that is my number 9, and my number 10 is Black Panther. Black Panther, I just actually recently watched like the other day, just because I wanted to refresh my memory, because I knew it was good. But I mean, I'm not like hype about it like everyone was, but I still thought it was a great film. The villain made that film. Michael B. Jordan made that movie amazing, and so did Andy Serkis playing Claw. Those two really made the film what it was. Those two did a great job as their characters. I'm sad they killed off Claw, but if it weren't for Killmonger, I don't know if that movie would be as good as it was. But Killmonger is one of the best villains I think they've ever had in the MCU, and I wish that I wish he didn't die, but who knows? Maybe they'll find a way to still reference him or something. Because Michael B. Jordan is one of my favorite actors, and I love what he did with the character. And Black Panther is a very, very good film. Again, also it has a lot of connections with real world problems, and it does a good job of explaining them and addressing them without going too far. So yeah, Black Panther is my number 10. That is my top 10 MCU films of all time. Because again, I want to just honestly thank the Russo brothers and all of Kevin Feige. Thank Kevin Feige for making this universe, man. Somehow, if you find your way to see this, thank you for making the most beautiful movie universe of all time and inspiring other movie universes. It was amazing. It's been a roller coaster, and I can't wait to see what else happens. And honestly, you guys let me know your top 5s, top 10s in the comment section. I'd like to hear what you have to say. I'd like to see what your favorite movies are and what your opinions are about those movies. And so, moving on to the final topic of today, kind of transitioning from Marvel to Star Wars here, I want to mention let's take a minute to talk about Peter Mayhew. Sadly, he passed away a couple of days ago. I know this is a couple of days old, but Peter Mayhew is a legend. For those of you that don't know who Peter Mayhew is, he played Chewbacca in the original Star Wars films and in Episode 7. I looked in his IMDb page. I didn't see he played him on the 8th movie, which kind of sucks. But then again, I didn't care for 8. Not going to get into that. I may do a separate episode talking about that. But yeah, Peter Mayhew was a legend. I wasn't a huge Chewbacca fan. Well, I liked him. I loved his character, but it's not like I was raving about Chewbacca or anything. But it's really sad to see someone that you grew up watching pass away. It's really sad. And a lot of really famous and people that are amazing, legendary actors are passing away within just the past 5 years. It's crazy. And so I hope everything going on with the rest of his family, if he has any family going on. I'm not really don't know much about what his life is like, but if he has any family, I hope that they're doing well. God bless them and all that stuff. I hope they're doing well, and I hope that anybody who was a fan of Chewbacca, his memory will live on. He was a legend. No one's gonna ever be better than him. Now, some of you may go and say all he did was make a noise, but he created Chewbacca. He was the man. He was the guy. Without him, Chewbacca wouldn't be as good as he was, because he created the sound. He created the voice. It was his thing. And he is a legend. He is a legend. And so I think that's all we have for this first episode, you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching the first episode of the Gadcast. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And definitely leave in the comments below what you thought. If you have any recommendations, you want to leave any comments about this yourself. And honestly, again, let me know about your top 10 Marvel films and all that in the description as well, and what you thought of Endgame if you've seen it. And also, again, about any topics I brought up today. If you guys want to see more of this, again, make sure to like. Definitely expect another episode coming out very, very soon. This is going to be a weekly podcast. I'm figuring out what days. I might do every Saturday, but this is a weekly podcast, so be excited, guys. I'm going to be talking about all kinds of nerd stuff, Marvel movies, TV, video games. I got a lot of stuff to talk about for you guys. I could go on and on about this. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this first episode. Have a nice day. Goodbye.